And welcome everybody. I think we have an echo somewhere.
This guy, I can't see them. Sorry.
Sorry everybody for letting you wait. We're finding Rinpoche to highlight. I can see Rinpoche, but Rinpoche is not highlighted yet. Kamala. Rinpoche is waving.
Yes, I completely lost it. Okay, I can see them now. I'm trying to take. Yes.
Ah. pure appearance. So sorry, this is our bad karma, not seeing the guru clearly straight away. Thank you so much, Rinpoche, for joining us today on the 15th day of miracles. This year we are so lucky, so fortunate. We have 16 days of miracles. So tomorrow will be Chotrul Düchen. So we are so happy that Rinpoche accepted to give a 2-day teaching today. Thank you so much, Rinpoche. Rinpoche, may I offer mandala? Thank you so much.
Sure, please.
O holy and perfect pure Lama, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be trained. Idam Guratna Mandalakam Nyayatayami. Could Rinpoche please lead us in a refuge prayer, Rinpoche?
O Sanje Chodon Soji Chodam Shanjo Badon Dani Jason Chen Dage Jinro Gebe Sonam Gi Nrola Penje Sanje Drugur Sho Sanje Chodon Soji Chodam Changju Pardo Dani Jason Chen Dage Jinro Gebe Sonam Nrola Penje Sanje Drugur Sho Sanje Chodon Soji Chodam Changju Pardo Dani Jason 다이게 진소 제베 소남지 롤라 편지 상제 롤 동네 인지 송도 주변은 진제 선생 관전 된저가 참아병 된신 자존 소원데 조신든 루고 쇼 람점 송르구나 다위미 개상 타르번 주베 좀 세베 주베 타겐 신제 신년 남라 차제 Okay. Ani Kumbela, can you lead the refuge Sangye Chozoma in English, please?
Of course, Rinpoche. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
다 다른 Tushita 고진난체 아니 다른 주주도진 세번 줍시 다산이 조디 세번 정한테 차리비오래 근데 세번 정한테 니 야고 영향 제도 아주 세번 줍시를 더디 야고지 제도 나스 제가 가상 당부 제비나 빼마당하니 계속 님은 직체나스 내 말을 빼말하기 님은 니고 요송래 아니 제가 다 님은 니데 배제 당고도 비베레션데 체 님은 드링디 안 산이 된 너무 시선으로지 상담하는 지금으로 엄마시 산이 아주다 지금 다름살을 중년도죠. 소대심으로 선이 겨워는 같이 시행어스다. 로숨 기술라 시행어스제 아니 공격군들이 송주 쉬야 다티 산지 뭘 타바들라다 제바과요를 들한 제바스요 말에 되지 중요 고급제 아니 야 자제토는 지난주 다른 거 유년죠. 겨워는 지분들이 change스가 좀 쉬야다. 아니 산이 야 지게 갈수록 게르브 송주 도스 토베 고급이 오르 봐. 어디 인도 좀 아니 산이디 야저 갈수록 다 무시선으로 제 다 강다르장 개체주디 당한주 뒤진디 오더를 제비나 아니 더 쉽게 잡은 얘기 슈도서 말에 이내는 다 개체주디 산지기 제법 망고 주요에 나오네 다 주류 몰람 되진스 주류 수도 더 주버시고 다 주버 때문에 쓰고래 다 주버 때단데 망고 유에 나오네 아니 다 산이디 산이 주저들이야 좀 된대기 엔닝지 침비고 그는 랑네 아니 지게 소소리야 작하대 장게 뒤리신다 아니 모티브 때문에 쭉 라서버데서 대야 아니 지게 주준나서 때문에 아니 코란 쪽에 딱 개치셔디 문뱅하게 시기는 도바지 제바디 산이 제브레스 저장가 tel려다 주디두jen스 지주 송고도과 다디 인도 잠베 개치셔디 산이 좀 된디게 남을 필이네 살로 주나요네 데조 제바드조 짜다 침보레데 개체셔디 단 제바 탐제나는 제바 쇼도 주버디 산지 좀 된디 송그 제바를 타바다 자원이네요 말이 더 송그 제바디 개체셔 영향이 가르치는서나 아주 미드 미투지 아니 라 오늘 단에 쳐야 돼 그도 쳐요 미드 미투니 디니 버로야 understanding 야 쇼카도 중고할 수도 좀 아니 산지 좀 된디 강토를 예배기 쳐야지 시에네마 송 시에네 송버딩 하라는 저 삼주여 봐 고주여 봐 삼주여 봐 아니 제바 지주여 봐 된디지 인도 좀 밑에 자칭 버려도 봐 지금 나오는 필요가 있는 어제 15% som다스라면 현 털어야지 그래만 또 그렇지 뭐 믹스해내도 봐 다 개치슈디 상계기 숭들 땐지 아니 하란 주기 뒤를 땅에서 두 삼당 되면도 산이 뒤레진당 모두 유튜버 투도 아주 나로를 예버지래 삼바 어디죠 다마 뒤야디 가르소래 산이 되전에서 디냠도 말한 적이 심기 뒤에지만도 치기 다지 지켜wan지 뒤뒤야디 내가 첨부름도 아란즈 나게 심주 마투교다 랑랑을 두고 당에 밀레 두고 당게 아란즈를 야셈 마루어 주어지 어디 다 뒤에디 산이 뒤진 개발진지에 삼 도스당베는 진럽 체험으로 모두 진행을 지구나다
and so today Tushita's requested me to give teachings around the days of miracles, the first 15 days of the Tibetan New Year, and today's the 14th. The 15th day is counted as tomorrow, and so I feel like when I spoke to Pema, Pema sort of requested that I give 2 days of teaching. So then I thought the best way to think about this was to have the first day as a kind of preparation, and then the second day as the kind of the actual event, so to speak. So the day today, and then the actual 15th day of the 15th day of the Day of Miracles tomorrow. So the sort of preparation and then the actual event. And for those, tomorrow is really an incredibly fortunate day. For those who are actually physically present in Dharamsala, then after several years without being able to directly see His Holiness, those present here will be able to directly see His Holiness and receive teachings from him. And there is no greater opportunity to receive, from the like receiving the activities of the Buddha and the receiving teachings directly from the Buddha, there's no greater opportunity than this. And His Holiness will also have the, and all of us will have the opportunity to receive the Bodhisattva vows. And for those who are not physically present in the Dharamsala area, they'll also still be able to receive the Bodhisattva vows online, and also to His Holiness's teaching on the Jataka tales. So tomorrow is so today is like a preparation. Tomorrow is like the actual, the main festival day, and celebrated in this wonderful way with His Holiness. And so, in terms of the history regarding the history regarding the Days of Miracles, I can't give a very detailed description, but in terms of His Holiness's, not His Holiness, the Buddha's enlightened activities, and how the main sort of thrust, the main sort of history regarding this festival was the display of the Kasarimshiti Mutepa Tugdang Karis Shambadi Mutepa Tugdang Kagi Zutudunsa Digi Kagi Lechin Devadatta, and for the purpose of Devadatta, and also for the 6 sort of founders of non-Buddhist tenet systems, there was a kind of competition in regard to displaying miraculous powers, and out of and this took place from the Buddha's intent to engage on this day in this way was infused with a kind of deep sense of compassion, and but actually the real meaning of all of the display of these miracles is not so much in the sense that that miraculous powers that the Buddha could display, such as passing through the earth, or all kinds of other miraculous powers. Essentially the reason that the Buddha did it was out of deep compassion to help overcome people's sense of pride about being able to perform miraculous activities. And actually, they're kind of sort of flying through the sky, or passing through the earth or something. These kind of activities are, whilst they may appear astonishing, are really not the most astounding or most astonishing activity of the Buddha is, and the most powerful is that of the words or the teachings of the Buddha passed on through the Buddha's speech. So, and in that sense that in the sense that when sort of when and that sense in where we people sort of the teachings passing on from the Buddha directly to us, almost as if they were face to face, and so that the teachings that the Buddha, the understandings that the Buddha had within his continuum are then passed on to us through kind of through the medium of his speech and his teachings, and the things that we need to sort of to hear, to think about, to contemplate are all passed on to us through his speech. So it's not, really, I think that when we talk about the sort of the kind of miraculous competition with Devadatta and the 6 non-Buddhist masters, I think we have to think of this not just as a kind of external event that took place, but actually that really all of those kind of ideas or sort of tenets almost are actually inside of us, and so they're states, they're kind of perhaps mistaken states that need to be tamed, and so the real blessing and the real sort of purpose of this teaching, of this event and the teachings, as the teaching of it, is to help us to tame within ourselves these kind of inconsistent, mistaken kind of states. And that's really the real blessing that comes from all of this, rather than thinking of it as a kind of external event where the Buddha was able to overcome non-Buddhist Devadatta and the non-Buddhist masters through miraculous feats. It's more the sense of overcoming our internal kind of contradictory or mistaken states.
어디리시다? 다 원한 지게 거란주 아니 지게 딘제기다 시기 뒤뒤버디 먼저 첨부들어야 돼. 얘는 란주니 뭐 도움도 있냐는 말이나 미신바 뒤에 자원이 연구 말해. 대유점에 란주다 대tin 루치는 란주 상관도 다 지들은 주 troling 년시 난 신화시에 캔디 있네를 지난주 년 캔디 있네를 상황 로직다 최바 망치 최바 차디요 다 지니 사바저 지는 마도 망체다 지금 용탈로 주가 배 전장제 답에 최바인 삼성으로 지금 당아 계속 오르베 캥버선으로 in a positive way다 뒤에든요 손으로 냐냐래 남바인 삼성선으로지 다디 인도산 뱅아라주 니샤 추지래 칸도인 게죠 아니 지금 도스체 아니 지금 밀레 펜도라제 제 아니 지금 냠렌다 제 원도 선배 다들 참말로 아니 개치슈디 소소소소야 저와 당체 안테다 담지 철로 두고도 좀도 셋다 저거 자심으로 봐 아주 내가 제디 지금 지금 좀 요래데 철로 만로니만 거요 인도전배다 아주 소소소소리야 고고 땅와 많이 붙이지 아니 예 근데 제버디 철로 두고도 안 다철 조세 될 철 좀 받이 망고지 하고 살아만도 철이야 다지기 사례 좀 받이 망고 되고 봐. 다 개체슈디 그사님만이 개인 군대는 송주주시 개인 군대는 송주주시디 바로 편복할 정도는 개인기만 다 버리시 간데 개조로서보다 참내용들이 대처를 주고 들이야. 남사 아니 다른 님의 질리니 어디 체인다 삼삼들 중소나 아니 남상 거란디 실리지즘도 직거고요스 저장가디 태와디 저들 개발을 누구도 써야 돼. 아니 얘 드린 사베 개발 자원 디추진스다. 그봐 디추진스 아니 두서도 다시 디 탈베 주로 누구도 삼로 다운데 디 탈베 주로 민로데스 다지고 봐. 민로데 닌중 선배 말씀 비쳐. 메타버도 비셔로 말씀 비쳐. 딘진라 강야 많이 비쳐. 오 도스고요. 디지 정도 아니 신이 세미나로 다 드링 이마지를 제시하버도 삼지 랑가 샤바질을 드로베선으로 마도 쉐를 두면 마레기 삼로도 좀 비춰되는 드로면도 세대 점에 에 신이야 선이 너니야 최최단 교치단 거였어 디 펜부 십지도 송게 디나 신 아란즈 참레 지금 간되는 게 저도 소보다 아니 지금 참 이론 대니를 소보다 저 양내양도 awareness 가리가노 awareness 디 Tsenshab 것도 쓰려나 어떤다 얘기 주변에신 얘기 무슨 거요나신 아야디 지금 지난주에 된듯이 나는 야고요. 삼층에 또 쉬어지기 니알디 줄나게.
And so in terms of when we talk about so then we sort of talk about not just taming the Buddha, not taming the sort of not overcoming the others with miraculous feats, but this sense of taming our own continuum, taming the sort of mental afflictions within our continuum, and it's not possible to help to tame the afflictions of others if we're not able to do that ourselves. That's, you know, we have to do it with our own minds. And so today we're all meeting together for this Dharma sort of Dharma meeting and discussion and meeting. And whether you're someone who, like myself, who is giving an explanation of the teachings, or whether you're one of the audience who are listening to these the things, you know, most of us here are, I believe there are a couple of people who are perhaps quite new, but the majority of us who are meeting today have perhaps had, you know, we had 5-10 years of experience and contact with the Dharma, and perhaps we have a little bit of pride of thinking of, not in pride in a good way, a little bit of pride of thinking ourselves as a practitioner, as a Buddhist, as a Buddhist practitioner. So pride in a good way. I don't mean that in a bad way, but there's a little bit of sense of, you know, I'm a Buddhist practitioner, and in terms of Dharma practice, and, you know, all of the practices that, you know, as part of that feeling of ourselves as a Buddhist practitioner, we, you know, whether it's doing our own personal practice, whether it's assisting others in some way, aiding others, whether, you know, our daily recitations, our and virtuous practices that we do, one of the things that one of the questions that it's essential to ask ourselves is what we're doing, what we consider to be our Dharma practice, does it really become an authentic Dharma practice or not? And that's an extremely essential question to ask ourselves, which also helps prevent ourselves from cheating ourselves about you know, whether we really are doing Dharma practice or not. So this is a question that we should always ask ourselves: is it really, does what we do the activities that we do in terms of recitation, etc., really become a Dharma practice or not? Now, this question is, of course, a little bit complex, because there are many, you know, there are levels, different deeper and deeper levels of what we might consider Dharma practice. But what the sort of way that my teacher, when I was listening to teachings from one of my teachers, that the way that he sort of explained it is that, you know, whether we're doing, you know, whatever recitations, virtuous activities for the benefit of others, whether, you know, retreat, any of these activities, each day we should look at ourselves and ask the question: does it become Dharma practice? And the sort of medium through which, the way which we do that, is to posit a syllogism to ourselves about whether it really is sort of virtuous Dharma practice or not. And the syllogism will go like this: you know, the recitations, the virtuous activities, etc., that I've performed today is the subject, and then it's more does not actually become a cause for liberation. So it's that's the kind of like the question. You're actually asking yourself the question, but you're sort of putting it in this way of like, I don't think it really becomes a cause for liberation. And this the reason for the syllogism is because it's not infused or supported by the mind of renunciation, because it's not infused or supported by the understanding of impermanence, because it's not it's not a practice which harms my self-grasping. So those criteria are the way in which we will and if we fall into those, so not infused with the mind of renunciation, not supported by the understanding of impermanence, and not harming our self-grasping. And if those don't do those things, then we can say that the practice has not actually become, it has become some kind of path or something, but it's not actually becoming a path to liberation. And, you know, we don't need to get down about this, but we need to also then look at ourselves clearly and feel, well, okay, then I need to, you know, pick this up a bit. I need to work harder at this. So this is a really beneficial way of thinking about all of the virtuous things such as retreat, recitation. And so this is this awareness, when we talk about awareness or you know, mindfulness, mental introspection or vigilance about what we're doing and how we're doing it, then this is a very important way to look at our virtuous activities.
Oh, that's so. But then, around tanda tiringi 마시야기 저자들이야 아니 람지rimba 다 람림스보다 람림디 angarajo ni sha chujilia nyamne jongsu kanjes 최고 유메시지 라비오리 다이네 람림기 지기 차상화진 로에 주저 채널에 나 시행기 미기 채널에 가고래 다이나양 개치슈데 람림기 우들이야 말하는 기부 충무의 쪽으로 다 망치해가지고 정말 기부 침벽의 쪽으로 망치지 되봐야바다 매봐야바다 하바도 chanjugu 심시도 잠배 정로 지금 배 가보시다 지고래 아니 디토를 로종해야 하는 거래 아니 예 동원이 따war라니 다 지금 겨울음치 두지거든기 지금 몇 상월로 태삼 제제 답에 상월로 지고래 따이는 이게 남름 침묵이 저름부시기 아니 이게 강강한데야 기부 충무의 초거든 미답의 초거디 또 정한도 냠디기요 세고르베 미도 돈하지 그면도 세고르베 디 따다지 용금에서는 하나 딱 하나랑 지기 삼로당 인터뷰 차디샤 디 인도 다 런도 상말로 지기 이마다바르시 아니 삼로 차당 거 토네 두 삼로당 제가 기부 충무이 두 시제가 기부 등이 두 삼로당 기부 충무이 세기 아주 마소네 아주 탁 검주점에 다제서 divine bright 세 주고요. 어딘지 고고요. 봐. 다들 요즘에 타바도 다 단다지 기부 충무기 값도라 아니 말한 줄 삼로 야고 마당신 타바도 양 미다비 추고를 삼로 야고 마당나 아니 단다 독두도 주비나 가담벨라마 아니 기시 보도베기 세상가 강 미다비 추고들 이니 그런게 체인지 믹스에 따나지 니 낭실 미다비 송도와 낭실 제장가 낭실세디 세디기 나와다 아니 세디 디치니가 세네디 그래 세디지니기 아니 나와세요 제르부치기 딜이야 미게 람좀남좀 나로라 직 두두주마 송두 아니 그래서 단다 덴저니가 첼라 롱메바스 덴저니가 첼라 롱메바 일라 곰베 센디나챈도 세 세디게 나챈도던지 렌제밀로 코르웨 동에남 양양선의 치면나챈도 세 나신이 나와 니도와 세디게 나와다 제 치면 나와 니가 너야기 안에 타람디 가리 제토 그랬어도 동리에 송도가 전주 셈레 송도가 가리에 송셔서나 미다버들이었어 제장가 기뻐다베게 네 낭세 미다베 곰티 지제 그럼 뽑아도 되면 돈 송도가 보다와기 디르 딘지지 마충부이나 미다발의 양내양도 로지버 쳐봤다 아니 세디게 나와디 충로 땅과 나와베 매버스 비기지면 비치 나와디 충 땅세 된다 그래서는 나와디 단당하라는 쪽 미지게 땅디 세디게 나와 마도지게 치말 삼모그런 땅 두고요 말 코리니엔 두고요 말 이 가르치는서는 세 딜라 셴징 착 세드리다 세딜의 셴징 차야디 가르기 지구도 세두잠베 아니 딱 버르던베 등진 지구지 라는주의 셈나는다야 드링상이 변나 두스라 그러봐 로니 숨지 되그래 삼삼 술이네요 나도 저기 다 상이 힘이면 세디 나도 최 진행지 상로를 칸이 시기열 때셈 딩나로라 패전 시기 말에 삼삼디 개런티 소소는 거 알아봐 제장 아주기 인슈런스 sögo야 돼 딜토 말베 제장 상이랑 시에르스는 솔직히 인슈런스 주고 말봐 다니 머신 테스트 되기어 삼장 남상 인슈런스 와두고 봐 제장가 되게 가르 중국도 슬라베나 진단에 시에 삼당 거를 쓰고 말에 가르전서는 말한 쪽이 다른 최 되던 제제 세대단 치만 얘기 나는 수도 치만 수도 많아도 봐 개와 균투는 저 삼당 보여 봐 제장가 다른기 아니 메타백이 삼로도 코치 세대게 나와라야 동행지 체네 아니 삼로 자체로 당제 세 치말라야 편토니지 단다고는 제고 우리 세 삼로디 기부 중요가 통모만 비기 랍자라도 봐 대인도선배 말하는 저기 다 람름도 주 고민도 선배 기부 중요가 메다바 젤렌치니 고미야디 빼내가 첨부르샤 띵야지 구나게
and so when we so the topic of the teaching that I'm giving over the next 2 days is entitled integrating the stages of the path into daily life, I think, isn't it? So this sense of how taking the stages of the path, the teachings on the stages of the path to enlightenment, and the practice, and so it's not possible for me, given the time, to cover the complete sort of gamut of the stages of the path, and also it may be even difficult for someone like myself to be able to convey all of that to you. But one thing that I would like to focus on, because at the start of the stages of the path, all these stages of the path teachings, it always starts out with the being of the smaller capacity, the persons of a smaller capacity. But a lot of us tend to not get too excited by that, and we get much more excited by the persons of a greater capacity, with teachings on the awakening mind, and we really have a strong, somehow we have a kind of natural strong interest and to study and learn about this, and also perhaps due to the kindness of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, also this a real sort of inclination and interest towards the teachings on emptiness, so we tend to sort of pay much more attention to those sort of practices like emptiness bodhicitta for beings of higher scopes, but tend not to focus on perhaps more fundamental things such as the understanding of impermanence. And this is true of our sort of in the way that we study and we practice, and this is the same for me. I'm not saying, I also have this sort of this way, a sort of bias, but what we need to do really is to, like, every day to sort of remind ourselves in some sort of similar way in which when we talk about deity yoga and the divine pride of I am, the deity or whatever, we should also, I am a practitioner of the small scope, I am a practitioner of the middling scope, I am a practitioner of the greater scope. This is kind of a sense of sort of almost like a divine pride we should bring to our practice. But but the small, but this this tendency not to focus on the practices and understandings associated with the lesser scope, the smaller scope, sorry, and we tend not to think about impermanence, and so in relation to this, there's a quotation from I'll stick any of the quotations in Serkong Tsenshab Rinpoche group after the teachings. There's a quotation from Geshe Potawa, which is quoted in J. Rinpoche when in J. Rinpoche's stages of the path to enlightenment, great stages of the path to enlightenment. And Geshe Potawa says that my meditation on when you ask about the sort of contemplation of dispelling the attachment to the appearances of essentially actually this life and the future lives, dispelling attachment to those appearances, my meditation on impermanence is what dispels that. The actual quote, I'll read it from the Lamrim Translation Committee translation, which is a little bit different. It says, "For me, appearance and exclusion refers to my own meditation on impermanence." So the way I want to explain this is also, so his meditation on, he sort of almost has a pride about this, a sort of courageous pride to say that my meditation on impermanence is what helps me to dispel the appearances for me of the attachment to the appearances of this life and attachment to the appearances of future lives. And this also ties in very much with J. Rinpoche's a verse from J. Rinpoche's Three Principal Aspects of the Past, which is the 4th verse, where he says, by cultivating in mind that this human life is so hard to find, yet has no time to spare, preoccupations with this life will cease. By contemplating repeatedly the truth of karma and samsaric suffering, preoccupations with the next life will come to cease. So this is it, but this is also connected with what Geshe Potawa is saying, in the sense that the contemplating, I want to make a sort of draw a connection there between but what I see is that contemplating impermanence helps us to dispel our attachment to the appearances of both this life and or the future lives. And so our way is, we really don't sort of feel that even if we're Dharma practitioners, even people who've had contact and contemplated the teachings on impermanence and stuff, there's no real sense. We all of us still have this feeling, I'm going to be around for some years to come. It's not, we don't have that we don't have that sense. Our sort of way is to sort of really completely focus on the importance of this very life, and really, if we really look, the importance of future and the concern of future lives, it never really occurs to us at all. We've got this sense that I'm just going to be around for 3-4 years. I'm going to be here for some years, and even if the Dharma practitioners themselves can say from their mouth, oh no, it's possible I might die tomorrow or tonight or something like that, but actually really what's inside of us is that we really think we're going to be around for some time. And so for instance, when people take out insurance, for instance, like life or health insurance or something, if we really believed that tomorrow we would, it could be the last day tomorrow, there wouldn't be any need for insurance. So insurance is only taken out because we feel I'm going to be around for a while, and therefore we will take out insurance. so it's not just it's not just the contemplation on death in that sense, but the sort of importance of the comparison to the importance of this life compared to the importance of many, and this life is only one life. This is only one particular life. And then if we think and there are many, the future number of lives is so much vaster than that. And so we have this sort of sense of wishing. The meditations in Lam Rim and the talking about death and impermanence, but particularly impermanence, are sort of encouragement to reduce our attachment to the appearances, the kind of clinging attachment to the appearances of this life alone, making our mind more, widening our mind out, making it more expansive, to include working more for the sake of our future lives. And this is and so these meditations, which are contained within the in the Lam Rim literature, in the for the beings of the smaller scope, are the kind of uncommon, such as impermanence, the uncommon characteristics of that, which help us to reduce our attachment to this and future lives, but particularly this life.
죄송하다 다다디 인슈런스들 저가 차대 지카도스나 배나 가담벨라마 라만주 페이지에 냠시 카도스나 아니 관다 샬라 최차바다 다 인공 샬라 최차면로 관다 관제 인기를 인공 샬라 최차바다 아니 내지 샬라 최사디 커불로지 도스마 샤제 다 산이 사유면 하고 말이스 아니 커불로지도는 공정이 wor스도 다디 그런저 디레 그런저 인슈런스 디레다 사가체 다디고 최전 셰버마도 딱 가담벨라만나 신한주 제투구를 bes나 제투구를 돼 이내야 단다 지금 다 쳐보든지 양내 양도 심규를 뒤보마 제제 에 제양아타 양 삼로 딱다지 마냐버지 렌드 상마 제시하비나 양 심슈 차에 그냥 가요 대인도 잠배 이년이야 지금 로정도 저 장받대죠 교토를 저기 제제 니마지 정신이 셈이나 내용 그래 인지미지 너지 카 보별이 개치 못해 말해 고지 가르쳐 올래 고 저리 제리 개치 물어봐 세상에 알아 디 루규디다 디 인슈런스 라바다 디 삼모 코즈 아니 지나서 쉬우
So just to sort of sort of just explain a little bit more about why I brought this idea of insurance and in relation to there's this history of the Kadampa Lamas, which some of you will have heard, where the Kadampa, I was going to say when they've eaten dinner, but of course probably most of them were practitioners who only took meals up to lunchtime. So let's say after lunch, once they'd taken their lunch, then they would take their bowl, clean the bowl, and then take the bowl and turn it upside down and place it on their table or whatever, and as a sign that perhaps by the time the next tomorrow's meals came around, they might not be around to eat it. So this is a sort of what's most important here is that that they of course the younger chicks on this ratumidurim she did the carpune and kagi preparation doshi child because not this ratumindu rumshiki sonde younger chicks on
제가 더 드링 세차를 산이 사야기 되게 유매 산이 심해버지지 되게 유매 시에토고 말했어
네 제 디제
디기 차네 뇌제 카법지 도스요레스
제 디치수 장 직성벌에 디치수 되기 디치 디라토레 디셈바 디치수 되기 카레나 난수기 난수 체토레 디나 콘소난신 체토레스 디네
제장가 다 가담베 라마조 도스난거요레스 제장가 가담베 라마나신 직부지장 렌드 직부지장인데 제고 말이스 베나 지 뇌제 카법을 소바다 다산이 시미용 섬도 상무당 대고에 개요 말이 다 단다 가담베 라마조 가르쳤으나 그런 쪽에 세디다 치문이기 나로네 치모 쪽을야 공부 코르찬이지 인자 뒤저 낭비나 코 미질이 경화라에 개요 말이 땅 아주 상해 watch 마다나 야 지기 셔바 연도도 제 아야 근데 선인이 대마대 하고요 요 말이니 다지 저요 말을 신경 선로는 라베가 보여 봐 주전 제 DM에 지마메 차이인가 요레스 제장하고 까담벨라만 좀 나야디 코로나로 겨바케 용야 그 말을 핑고 봐 어디 아주 투교 말이야.
So we don't want to sort of just we don't have to do exactly the same way that the Kadampa lamas do, because there's dangers of us kind of getting a little bit confused with all of this. For instance, so when they think that I've finished my food for today, the Kadampa lamas, there's tomorrow, maybe there's I won't be around. I'll have passed away and won't be around to have my next meals. They don't have to. We don't have to do exactly like this in that way, and really focusing on maybe I'll just be dead tomorrow or something. This kind of things. Maybe I won't be here to eat, because it's possible that maybe our sort of confidence or it's possible to really, for certain people, that sort of message might get us very down, and so we have to be careful when dealing with these things not to completely we have to sort of acculturate themselves to these things to ourselves. But what the very firm message that comes out of that is and which for us is easier to sort of attune ourselves to, is that between the concerns and energy put into this life compared to the future lives, it's more important to sort of adjust our attention and importance to the future lives, and this doesn't have to harm. It's not like saying, "Oh, I'll be dead tomorrow and I won't need to eat." It's not going to harm us, because people maybe get really sort of depressed or really sort of confused and think, well, I'm going to be dead in the morning, and this life's going to be over, and there's no next life and no future life. So there are all kinds of slightly unwanted sort of ways of thinking can occur, but definitely that switch between the focus on this life and compared to switching our focus from this life to the future lives is something that we can take away from that teaching from the Kadam Lamas.
Actually, the thinking like this, like the Kadamba Lamas, is not we might think this is not really optimistic way of thinking. Because whether there is me alive tomorrow, going to eat the delicious meal tomorrow or not, for us it is sometimes not really healthy. But for Kadamba Lama, it's really healthy, because this is the foundation to bring all the upcoming their practices on bodhicitta, on all this thinking about next life, and having to have the great ethical contact to have this. So it really helps for them. So for them, it is really optimistic way of thinking. But for us, maybe we are a little bit early to think like this. So don't get confused. Okay. Did you check? Okay. 다 디리샤 람림기 subject 나로리아 기부 중요한 것도 이렇게 제주디 덴저 텐샤바다 니가와스 제제 송 아니 디제수 남친님에레스 subject 나 요르와 남친님에 아니 되네 지기 란주기 12제수 매바멘트와 양라린 계고 그랬어 되네 디제수 깨와디야 라와메버 레기다 뇨몽 베기 아니마 계고 요레스 두 세제 아니 되네 녀송그 동에도 송용 봐 다 되게 란주 세미나를 단기 라바나시 대수 상황으로 란주 세미나를 모두베 취리야 꿀리야기 내가 가르치고 왔으나 다채 다가라야 아니 고코르지 마데 세디 디 아주 감라 찌쭈 고에디 디래도 봐 다원아 디기 딘데 상로 땅야 디기 아니 기부 중국이 저거 상황 아니 미다바 치워 미다바스 남주시고 봐 치워 미다바 곰다 조버를 배 곰추 조버를 배스나 디 조요 말이스 세상 딜레 제르무치 nembe지 견시 오더야 치외체 최마도 신 관계형 편함에도 세게 디야 키원도 신의 아니 다 기부 중국이 저걸 영어서 저거 창거도 봐. 다 제장가 딘나로네 다 개체슈리 가르도스나 치외체 최마도 신 관계형 편함에도 세디 딱 딜레 도와주고 요래. 딜레야기 디스레이셔도 삼로야고 베저 체체 디담 디 가르쳐버려 밸런스 모토브치 아니 지게 subject 당보 시선으로도 시디당 아니 아바니도 지고 마손에 딱다 질레 토베이나 아니 아주 시그리다 세들 감라 줄이요 말이 제장가 아주 지게도 말이야 다 들은 거상 오즈메로 냐마도 라마도 조파 지게를 페르도 아니 지게 지워미다 보고 송도 지게 먹고 랑네 로로요 레스 디 녀부요 말와 제상가 디 직전에 라메마 최송단 허리들이 직전에 년단 허리들이 강다르지 않게 제시디 디 밸런스드 투지오 말스 가르치는 치외도 최마도 신 관계 폐함에도 다 말하는 제 다가란다 차는데는 골로 상관디 지기도 말하는 저기 미질의 경험라야 뒤에 새 다가란 상무당이 레샤 제장가 딜레파 겔지 상로 좀 마당 보이나 아니 정치부지라고도 쓰들 다 경험 말에 탑재되라 아니 아주 최대 최고도 최제발라 이런 아주 개념체에 세디게 나와들 배 신자 차대 제대에 들으셔스 다디 총으로 간데스당 거랬을라나 답니다 봐 공부 요래세도 왔다디 내가 좀 모르겠어
in the Lamrim, in the stages of the path to enlightenment, the text they this sort of the way the sort of the outline of the text goes, particularly in relation to the practitioners of a smaller scope, is to it talks about the how it's difficult to find this life of leisure and endowment, and how we should make that meaningful. And then it talks about it comes to the section on death and impermanence, and how it talks about the fact that death is certain, and then also that that's not the end of things. Then after death, we will after death we will then be reborn again. And that process of rebirth will, in our current condition, will be under the sway of karma and mental afflictions, and then because of that, the sort of the outline of the text then talks about the sufferings of the lower realms, and so we have to sort of take this very carefully, because this is all to encourage us towards Dharma practice, and that, you know, this life is not forever, that we can't stay here forever, and so we need a little bit of sort of a little bit of sort of fear or understanding that that is the case. And then, in the section where it talks about death and impermanence, if we just talk about the fact that, that death is certain and the time of death is uncertain, but we don't go any, and then, the suffering under the cause of karma and afflictions and the suffering of the lower realms, then that's not a complete process of dealing with this subject of death and impermanence, because what we have to add on is that very important section, which gives us balance, which is that at the time of death, it is only the Dharma. It's only the Dharma that will help us at the time of death. And so then if we bring in that as well with all these other subjects, that will give us a kind of complete understanding of the smaller scope. So that it's a very important factor which gives us balance to these practices of the smaller scope, that at the time of death, there's nothing else apart from the Dharma which will be of benefit to us. And so it'll help us to sort of get a little bit of balance in our way of thinking about these topics, so that we're not terrified into terrified that we'll sort of end up in the lower realms or something without any chance. There is lots of sort of tales that have been recounted of when history has been recounted of when the lamas would go to the West to teach the foreigners, and when they would talk about a lot of these subjects, particularly things like impermanence and death, then often in those days, often many of the foreigners would leave the room and kind of for whatever reason they couldn't take it. Now, I'm not sure, could this be perhaps a little bit a lack of skillful presentation from the person explaining that, or whether it was perhaps there was some fault also within those who were listening to the teachings. But if they have a kind of balanced way to listen to these teachings, then that doesn't need to happen at all. We can't get away from the fact that we'll pass away. But what it says, this last category about the last section on only at the time of death will the teachings with the Buddhist practice help us, then this gives us a sort of a real sense that we really need to do Dharma practice as much as we can, and then we need to and in order to do that, we need to reduce our clinging attachment to the appearances of this life. And then so from that we have to think about, well, how am I going to reduce my clinging attachment to the appearances of this and other lives, actually, but most importantly this life. And then that brings us to the subject of meditating on impermanence. So that is what gives us a good balance when thinking about subjects which could otherwise be terrifying, such as death and impermanence.
알았어. 다때네 집에서 취마도 신 관계 폐마도 제도 따고 취들의 같은 주변에 신 지금 뭐지 유변안에 당아도 기부 중요기 나로라 취마도 신 관계 폐토 말에서 취디 미다베 취디 차득이요. 다 미다보 고메디기 디 자신물의 숨은 시 보다베 자신물의 숨은 시 마인바 말하는 줄 다시 제디 계시므로 봐. 디 뉴점에 말하는 줄 체디 마도 치치말로 삼로코란 땅이만 줘야 땅마 투비야디 아니 가리국 체벌했어. 디 가리기 체벌했을 뉴점에 디 체디 땅징기 체벌했어. 빼나 아주 차샤나 딱지란도 차비 신용년인데 우마들이 신용년이나 디나로는 남셔 준동안 그 퍼지나래 용거래 오문나래 용거래 제장가 통방 군주rsum 시지 배전할 지 리그를 봐. 저장 통남기 방자들이야. 방자 쪽으로 통방 군주를 숨겨야겠어. 통방 군주를 숨데 가르치는 샤브를 해서 좀 아니 타바토발라 아니 타바토발라야 아니 바르도 주지기 아니 계획들 숨겨야겠어. 아니 당보들이야 직다 숨버려. 직다 니바디 추림 티슈 춘저 송버리 아니 숨바델이야 태좀 요mon진 송버리 다 디기 첼레델이야 그 첼레 민다고 숨유베 나노네 당보디 직다니엘 샤버리 직다니엘 샤에 좀전에 가르송스나 코 타발이야 로고라 주고 말했어 직다 디자 직대기 내가 가르쳤으나 코 타바토비아를 바로 주기 쪽에서 타발을 주고를 제주고 말했어 어디 송요 다디 나신기 아니 대이 주소다 죽뭐죽제 디기 버제디 매베나 니바디 갈리 그랬으나 타르바는 로베가 던데 예베 사비 쇼라 야람 노버 로에기 냥가 첨부 쉬우죠 그랬어 니바 송 숨바델이야 람나 로베가로야 아니야 태숨레기 냥가 첨부 요랬어 디 차네 디 숨디 매바마스나 아니 타바토두고 매자 타바토발라 바르지 기조숨 개치슈됐다 통남 거서 자원의 방향에 당고디 디차대도 와 니당 배대도 총비 말한저 체디기 따탄데 등기 직달을 나봤나시 아니 말한저 체 디자마도 체 치마를 삼로코랑 코마토바디 가리기 지거를 땅징 지거를 제장가 람라 죽문도 봤어요 따버려서 땅징 지거를 제장가 딩어란주기다 저랑저 공부시에다 드링 지난주다 선의기 베베레이션 선의가 아주 다 경고를 지고 있는 직전에 개화상부 주는 전주선배 넘어 쉬어라 그래 선 전주선 고랑아서 트롤링 도스 제초를 돈이 고래 트롤링 도스 제초를 다 디니니가 로자신 분들이 차 아주 양내야도 거대기 요래 전주선 dom나 디슈요 전주선 사 전주선 dom바 dom나 디슈요래 아니 돈이 신예딩 아주 지 전화 마전에 시비주 검도 검구요래 때 지는 거 검백깔로 교와 도스로 전주심 dom바 쉬비깔로 초화되었지 송주 저사도 초화라자래 아니 간되는 게저 제비깔로 도스리고래 엔테네야 라자래 다디 가르치내라고 요르시도 랑신기 세디기 나와라람상 숙청부 봐 주루유도 디기 아니 지금 알체 년중당 전주선의 동의도 다 남상고라 예루도 와 추구 보나신 보스가 이 인류 다 개체셔도 다른 전환조 공부하시고요 또 라베데 얘기 개와 치마를 삼목 얘는 도박으로 기면도 개와 치마 연하면서 도박에 기면도 아니 지금 도박만 기면서 아니 지금 체 다가라는 게 삼로 때 땅인데 교 말에 치마래 삼로 땅 거라서 삼로 거란 말에디 싸워디 따버져 몇 등징이 드레스 지제 얘기하려고도 남림 나래도 디 컨텐츠 로송 지제 다 디벌로야 참조르기 지금 리시피디 녀처럼저게 아니 딘저 처럼저 써야지 처럼저 써고 봐 디는 디 중보이나 아니 말하는 좀 셔견도 말하는 적이 체디기 동해 컨디지 케어비나 체치마도 유쇼 나마데 유쇼 체 다가랑이 동해 컨디지 임비나 체디기 등진을 투버디 뭐성기도 그랬어 송도가 계절 미치기 탈람세지 나로 요래 대인도 그체 다가랑게 체디마도 체치마를 잡놓고 마토야디 등진기 제도버디 아주 뭐성 루트도 거 어디 다른 공부시에 총부이나 아니 지금 가담벨라마다 좀 된디기 공부다 제일 하와도 좀 된디기 덴바시 당보 송도 잠배 네 동해 덴베 송도 잠배 당보 미다고 송고도 와야 아니 지금 가리네 미다베 초골로 맞zam발라 고족서 매입선을 최고 고족만 투에선을 지래 콩만 최선을 지래 디인도 잠배디 쉬비지 계셔버려 당에 사우신 기회에 뷰다고 슈도 말데 이내 지난주에 다 로종 예바 신유 예바 지난주 같이 그래 참말로 최위 최를 소를 잡이네 소여드니도 단냐래 다 야마주 수술하고 차대기요 디인도 좀 지난주 인지미지 디지 공부시고 도스
And so this the Dharma practice is described in the practitioner of the smaller scope, and particularly this point about how it's only at the time of death, it is only Dharma, the only thing that is of benefit is the Dharma practice, is also very strongly related to the need to meditate on impermanence, death, but also impermanence. And as I've described from the quote from Potawa, so Geshe Potawa gives it says this is a really, giving us this encouragement to say it's a really essential practice. But of course, you also need to, Geshe Potawa has said it like that. I want you to also check from your own side why and how understanding of impermanence is important, and why the grasping at clinging to sort of permanence is a problem for us. Now, for those who have studied a little bit, perhaps in Madhyamaka, the middle way, or Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom sutras, then you may have come across what are called the three fetters of the three constant fetters of the path of seeing, which are the three main principal kind of obstructive things that arise and which are abandoned. The three constant fetters, which are the abandonments of the path of seeing, and these are kind of intellectually acquired wrong view of the transitory collection, jigda, independent, and then the holding certain ethical disciplines and aesthetic or yogic practices to be supreme. That's the second one. And the third one is afflicted doubt. And these are considered like grave kind of obstructions, which prevent us from proceeding on the path to which prevent us from following the path to liberation. In fact, they stop it. They completely stop us from completely following the path to liberation. And these, so they go in a sequence. The first one is the intellectually acquired wrong view of the transitory collection. And this is also, there's a verse that Rinpoche quoted earlier, which I'll put in the group also. So this first one, this first fetter of the wrong view of the transitory collection, an intellectually acquired wrong view of transitory collection, is what that has the effect of stopping us from even wanting to walk the path, from even having the desire to walk the path. And so we can't even, it prevents us from even sort of engaging in the path to liberation right from the beginning. The second one, so let's say that we do actually have the desire and start to engage with the path to liberation. And then the second one, the holding the certain ethical disciplines and yogic practices to be supreme, means that we start to walk the path, but we mistake the path. We take a mistaken path. And that's the second one causes us to do that on the path to liberation. And then the third one, the afflicted doubt. So again, when we are traveling on the path to liberation, but this afflicted doubt causes us to have doubt in the path itself. And so those three ways in which these three, they're called constant fetters, kunjo tomban sum, the three constant fetters which are abandonments on the path of seeing, prevent us from engaging in and starting out on, and then continuing all the way to liberation. And so, and if you can't get rid of these, they're direct obstacles. So if you can't get rid of these, there's no way to attain, to complete to fully walk the path to liberation. And another thing that we should also add on to this is that what I want you to think about, so it's kind of like a homework, I want you to think about is that what is our over obsession with this life and our inability to be able to think about, to even think about, let alone really sort of take seriously the concerns of future lives, is grasping to permanence. So this is also something. This is also something I want you to contemplate. So tomorrow, we have this tremendous opportunity to be with His Holiness and to to receive the Bodhisattva vows, and also to and His Holiness may well talk about sort of emptiness and in terms so we have an attraction, we have a natural attraction to these things, so we get a very warm feeling when we take the Bodhisattva vows. But after we've come out of the teaching ground and start to get on with our day again, very soon that feeling is lost. We may get some sort of excitement or sort of intensity to engage with, say, meditation on emptiness, but it fades after some time. It fades in our daily practices and our recitation. They tend to lack a kind of that feeling is sort of a little bit inspired feeling, but it's easy to lose it. And why is that the case? Because our clinging attachment to the appearances of this life are so strong. So our meditations on renunciation, our meditations on bodhicitta, the awakening mind, our meditations on emptiness are actually a little bit like bubbles, on the surface of say a river or a water. They appear, but they're very sort of temporary, and so this, I want you to sort of, there's no real thought of us, this life compared to, we really only think about this life, and really we don't think about even really, if we're really honest about whether even if the next life exists or not, and certainly in terms of paying it in importance and attention, it doesn't happen. And what we need to contemplate is the relationship to, or what I want you to sort of contemplate as this is our preparatory day, is this relationship between grasping at things to be permanent and our inability, our over-focus and over-emphasis on this life compared to future lives, but also our grasping at permanence in relation to the sufferings that occur in this life. And this is also something which is discussed in Gyaltsabje's commentary to Dharmakirti's Pramanavartika, compendium of kind of epistemology. And is it possible for us to draw a direct, to sort of get a direct kind of direct sort of realization or understanding of the relationship between grasping at permanence and our overemphasis on this life, and also the sort of occurrence of the sufferings of this life? And whether it's the great Tibetan masters or the Buddha, the Buddha starts out by teaching us the Four Noble Truths, and in the counteraction force to that grasping at permanence is held right there when he talks about the truth of suffering and the aspect of the truth of suffering, the impermanent aspect of the truth of the impermanent aspect of the truth of suffering. And so we need to, as a Buddhist, we really need to get a grip on these kind of things very clearly. As sort of, I used an analogy of sort of, for those who has some experience in practice or study, then you really sort of need to get your bite down on this with your teeth, to chew over it as much as possible, and to really get a grip with these kind of topics, as well as sort of these more higher, these sort of more easily engageable practices of awakening mind and emptiness.
Okay, that in the Buddha Bigi suggest Kasani Chinani Tembi Bak, the group knowledge Shana Yagodo. Did not learn a kitchen the Cartosana. Diredua. Did Lo Maji Padu Chet Tamji Lam Garnet Dubayin, Song said. Chesanga Midabig somebody Yapuch Marco Che. Any Majena Tong Karagsana Maji Pardo. 최 탐지기 람스도 최 탐지스도 말한주 시자세트 말봐 최 탐지스도 말한주 냠랭 간대지 제베이네야 맞다 탐지 람 가네 야 로토면도스 다디네가 정글이셔 디처럼 게 비나로 직샤 그룹나 직샤 다데네 다 뭐도 드린 투저디 차로도 봐 기도 연한 캡상도 봐. 그 예 주주체가 나와서 시험도. 지난 주주체가 시험 주주직 자료도 봐. 오케이. 근데 이제 년 리지 주샤. 아니 디 걸로 와자.
And so also in relation to this, and I'll put these in the group when Patawa, if the quote from Patawa, which is contained in which is quoted in J. Rinpoche's Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. And it says, thereupon a lack of attachment for this life begins. Until this arises in your mind, the paths of all teachings remain blocked. And so what's the fault of, not meditating on impermanence, and therefore also having this over preoccupation with the appearances, particularly of this, the kind of clinging attachment to the appearances of this life? What's the fault that accrues from that? And what Patawa is saying to us is that until this lack of attachment for this life begins, until that sense arises in your mind, then all the paths of all the teachings, and it says it uses the word in the Tibetan, it says Tamshi. So all of the teachings, but actually what it says, all of our practices will not proceed along the path to liberation unless we have this sense of lack of attachment to this life. So that's a very strong sort of exhortation from Geshe Patawa to us.
Okay. The Samingi joke the Lama Sonda. Kijugi joke.
Oh God, yeah, sorry, yeah. What did you say? Karisamare.
제가 기주 연나 캡상도스 제가 주주 체가 나서 시험도스 저는 기주 주주 체가 나서 주주직 차로도 와 캡상도스.
So there's an advantage to the translator that because if I say that I'm going to speak for an hour, then of course I will speak for an hour. But the translator also has to only because nala chuzu chega shegore chiran chuzu chega shegore did nala kepsan re sumi re. So
제가 주주직 두저 연비나 쉬셔야지. 아니 계란 예 주주 체가 시그래 계란 주주 체가 시그래 주주직 차로도 왔어. 기준면은 사상에 시험으로 봐.
I said, sorry, yeah, that's not an advantage to the translator. It's an advantage of having a translator. If I have a translator, then when we put aside an hour for our teachings, then I only have to talk for half an hour, and then the translator has to talk for half an hour. So I get an advantage of not having to talk so much by having a translator.
Thank you, Simon. 이제 다 개체주 말하는 다 산이들이 산이 두신 제고 지단에 다 지금 이거 제고 컨트롤 치기네 다 산이님들이야 지금 다 말하는 저 저버링되는 산지기 산지 구실을 봤으면도 산지 구섭다 송송섭 토섭다 나한테 겨울음치마도 요마를 공군군의 산이다 여러 무지 만제네 당아도 제 라비오레 다 대구 고급디 영화조를 다른 오스라브르데 치수 트란졸라야네 겨울음치 칠리 용시야 송주슈야 겨울음치 치게를 페이지야 송주슈도에다 니마디 신의 샤르바지 다 전부는 난데 리지 처리를 삼수 술에 요마레 다이는 다른디 지금 로솜 지기 등하란 줄 라마달로메 바로야 장다데 최위인데 아니 선이 지난주 개치슈데 말한 섬나당당 도스당에 지난주 도스 공부시는 야고요래 다 말한주 산제기 특제지도 같은데 계산치라는 표와 제장가 딕버지에 미셔신 개업부송 초벌 제 랑게 셈의 용수도 디네 산제 템바인 시제다디 망제 돌레요래 다 인지 신년도 인지나는 셈요래 이탈리도 이탈리 지레 디나로래야 다 베나 도가질레고래 도가 가르에서나 딕버지에 미셔신 시도 딕버지니 지교와 말세야디 줄로 참여 송교래 개업부송 초벌제 시도 딕버 마치자 안고 개업부송 초벌제 연구를 세대에 참여 두고요래 아니 랑게 셈의 용수 듀스도 잠베 딘데기 셈 듀고요 셈 듀벌 때네 아니 지기라가 제거를 해야 돼 창면 랍전한 거 요래데 아니 디월이야 지도와 니식메체 디니 산제 템바 인세들 고주 쉬지 요레스 디세데 니식디 저장가 디기 다 아마디 네버체로 컨더스탄 거 요레스 제제 다디 니 갱기도 양내 안도 공부시지 디 순고디 펜부도 된다 의미는 다 가라는 얘기면 다 주도고 말되네 네 개인기 공부 시간도 내지도 네 나라를 펜부시다 좀 재산계란 조에 다 가라는 공부시지 재산가 말하는 주 기부숨기 삼로당당데 아니 남부산지로 투모모 임을 대인도 좀 기부 충분히 나로라야 아니 기부 충분 것도 단 드링아 주 네 주변나시 아니 마란주 줄이야 아니 지기 개와제치 개와디 아니 뉴rum부제 네 데마토야다 아니 데 최최소 만들어 조디 가르레도스나 체디게 아니 나신을 차비 갱게레샤스 데 인도점베 데 나신디 가환에 리기도 스르점베 아니 조디 고착베 공도 인자 그 가르를 때 연구소도 남산 등진을 야주고만 주고시 등진을 야주고 주죠 딱 버르점베 등진들이셔 시제 디스탐레 전제 등진 경우 머리바 세디 가환 연구도 세디나 디체 코란을 샴바디 가환 연구소도 유 등진이 때는 연구도 세기 직제 아니 니바디 아주 기부 딩 마시 산이 연구로 기부 딩 값수 아니 동아주 아니 코와나로라야 직 밀릴 개와내는 할리 개와내는 비네레 개와 상고질렘 비나양 대양 코웨랑 신지 농행계랑 신진레 세두점베 디 아니 자와데 용서되고 레다 뇨모니를 연구도 레다 뇨모니리 가와를 연구도 수도 소디 아니 직다 등진될 때니 게임도 시지 야 머리벌 도다 머리벌 니차 송하다 당고데 딱 버튼 등진기 머리바 니바델 등진기 온도 송에 머리바 아 숨바티 아니 말하는 다치기 디르바 가서래 기부 침벽이 삼로당당 인도점베 저 동행 탐지 정서 그 자와디 가르는 랑진진이 있었어야 된 거다 동행 탐지했어야 돼 동행의 테스트 야치했던 것도 마시사니 아주 좋게 제 물어봐 저장가 얘기 랑든 용서 만조 이야기 교조디 가리고 온 것도 레샤스데 랑 제버든 진진기 온 머리 봤을 남는 지도다 랑 제버든 진진기 온 머리 봤어야지 간제 머리바 딘디지 숨 딜레테니 아니 아란주기 디가소레 디베원도 마소와 당부 기부 중요원도 제베 디버지냐 메자신 기부 딩고원도 제네 아니 기부 충무디 시리샤베 돈에 기부 딩기냐 메 제베가라 개와 보선 소벌 제야지 되네 디디양 랑게 셈 용서 뒤두에서는 뒤요 말에 단대 기부 친구 값소 안에 삼바자 쳐봐 아니 자주고 셈데 인주점베 당동양의 랑된 용서 좋으면도 디인주점베 얘기 셈규 용서 주가 단대 뒤면도스 안 디디베 탑들라타 자주고 셈마지나 탑미도 세주점베 자자 랑게 셈네 용서 뒤 세주점베 디두주 숨 대야 머리버 민다와 숨 도단디 산지 템바이 이 공부 시단디 사워드지 차기 유나면나 이 이나야 공부 시나 거 교면도 봐. 이 교인은 슈을 따서 당초래. You can debate no problem. 이나야 디 삼로지 땅지 아니 산이 야워르미치 슈리가나 배웅을 디스냐네 공부 시제도 슈 아니 야워르미치 야 패차봤다. 아니 디기가 좀 람되는 아니에다 걸로만이 디장부름 찍는 거라. 아니 산이 자주 있으면 너무 남비가 삼당당 도시 다디 아주 마소네. We haven't seen His Holiness for such a long time. So the question is, what are you going to offer? He doesn't want $1 million. He doesn't want an expensive car. He doesn't want the expensive phone. So what he needs is your practice. That is the best offer. So I'm giving you a tip. So don't refuse it. Just kidding. Okay, I'll translate that, please. Simon Tandadi.
So tomorrow is, this important festival, Buddhist festival, one of the great Buddhist festivals of the year, and of all the beings in the world that we experience here, there's no greater representative of the Buddha than his Holiness. So we're not sure how long we'll see him for, but we'll definitely be able to see him for the first time, and what has been, to be close to him and to be able to see him really directly for the first time in what has been many years of not being able to be sort of, physically close to our this incredible representative of the Buddhas, and so hopefully, so that tomorrow we should be able to see him, and hopefully, if the world situation allows, and in the future, people who are not here will also have an opportunity for if His Holiness can travel again to see His Holiness directly. But this is so what I want to do is I'll be put in the group. Is this very famous verse that many people have heard. It's translated into a Buddhist verse, which is translated into many languages, Italian, English, many languages. But what I want to do is I'm giving you this verse and a way of thinking about this verse, so that you can try to contemplate these things when you are waiting to see His Holiness tomorrow. So the verse is the very famous verse which says, "Commit not a single unwholesome action, cultivate a wealth of virtue, tame completely this mind of ours, or completely tame our own mind. This is the teaching of the Buddha." And so this is a very famous verse, but we might have a doubt about this verse. Is this really, it says this is the teaching of the Buddha, and yet if we sort of look at the verse a little bit carefully, the first line, "Commit not a single unwholesome action," well, we also have a doubt. Well, maybe this, all the religious traditions talk about this, don't they? The second line, cultivate a wealth of virtue. But all the other religious traditions also talk about, collecting, performing, engaging in virtue. And even the third, taming our own minds. Many of the religious traditions suggest to their followers that they tame their minds. So, and in the Tibetan, in the last line, it says, "This is Dini Sangi Denpa Yins." This is the teaching of the Buddhas. Now, it uses what's called a nyetsik in Tibetan, which is a sort of very sort of close sort of word. So it's sort of very specifically saying this is the teaching of the Buddha. It's sort of a great emphasis is put on this. And one of my teachers explained this to me, and I don't know if we can actually if it's actually exact or correct or not. But I think for me, I've derived great benefit from this way of thinking about this verse. So I'm going to pass that on to you. And that is relating this verse to in the stages of the path, the three scopes of the different kinds of being on the stages of the path. And so, for instance, if we take the small scope, as we've been discussing the details of some of the contemplations of the small scope today. And in terms of not committing negative actions, and in terms of not committing negative actions, and not wasting, in terms of not wasting the opportunity to practice the Dharma, then, and not throwing that away, then what causes us to do those things, to not to commit negative actions and to waste our opportunities, is attachment to the appearances of this life. So actually, and in some ways we can think about this in relation to not taking it all the way down to the level of that being caused by a grasping at a kind of inherently existent self, or self-grasp, grasping at a self of persons, but just in terms of not understanding impermanence. So the ignorance of grasping at permanence. I think we could connect that up in relation to the smaller scope. So we've covered, I've talked a little bit about this today. Tomorrow, in relation to the middling scope, and tomorrow we'll sort of talk about this a little bit more, that whether we have or will achieve a rebirth, a birth as the gods, or as with a precious human rebirth as a human being, a precious rebirth as a human being with all the qualifications, still that existence is qualified. It's still part of samsara. We're still in the nature of suffering, and the cause of that is karma and mental afflictions, which and driven by the process of the wrong view, grasping at the wrong view, grasping at the transitory collection, the wrong view, grasping at the transitory collection. And so here we could sort of have a second ignorance. So the first one is, the first scope would be the ignorance of in relation to the ignorance of grasping at permanence. The second one would be the ignorance grasping with the wrong view, grasping at the transitory collection to be inherent. And then the greater scope, that maybe in thinking in terms of how all of our sufferings and the inability of ourselves to also complete our own welfare, our own aims, and we'll talk about the medium and the middling and greater scopes in a little bit more detail tomorrow. Is the the ranches in somebody ranches in is the ignorance of self-cherishing. So so we have the ignorance of permanence in relation to the smaller scope, ignorance of grasping at permanence in the smaller scope, grasping at the view of the wrong view of the inherent transitory collection in the medium scope, and then in the higher scope, not being able to complete our own welfare as well as the aims of ourselves and others, and all these sufferings that stem out of that could be caused by the ignorance of self-cherishing. So then we have these kind of three, if we put down these three, we have these three ignorances. And so in terms of the small scope, and these three ignorances in relation to the small scope of not committing negative actions, in terms of the middling scope of cultivating a wealth of virtue, and then the greater scope perhaps of the complete taming of our mind from the the greater scope of this kind of wider mind of not completely taming our, not completely being able to tame our mind, and having this as a greater scope of mind, but not being able to completely tame it and still having a sense of self-cherishing, would be, so then the complete taming of the mind would be in relation to taming the ignorance of self-cherishing. Now, I'm not sure if this is something new, this way that I've just presented it. I'm not sure if it's something new to you or not. I'd like you to think about it in this way. And if there's any sort of faults or kind of logical or philosophical faults in it, then please do debate with me. But perhaps, when we'll all wait for His Holiness to come to give the teachings tomorrow, then perhaps these are sort of things that would be good for you to contemplate while he does that. And then when His Holiness comes and ascends to the throne, then he'll give us a teaching, including the bestowal of the Bodhisattva vows. And as I said, so His Holiness, this is the greatest offering that we could offer as His Holiness is contemplating these things. So I would encourage you to do that.
Hola, so that's not during this harbor. Then you dedication down Molam Soyachina.
Sashi perki choche me tok tram re rap ling zini de gyempadi sangye zingdu mikte o wai trokun namdak zing la sherpa shok. May my Venerable Lama's life be firm, his wide divine action spread in the 10 directions. May the torch of the teachings of Losar always remain, dispelling the darkness of all beings in the 3 rounds. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Nyayatayami. We will share the screen for the dedication prayers. Having thoroughly investigated and in accord with all that I've heard, day and night, through the 4 reasonings, mind born of reflection on these topics of contemplation, may this discernment sever all doubts. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of the grounds and path. May I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with a dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. With my heart going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread or once spread have declined, may I revere this treasury of happiness and aid. Om Swasti, may all be auspicious. O charming lady of 7 eyes, supreme mother of the triumphant, exceptional deity skilled in bringing a great rain to fall of the actual attainments of deathless long life, positive potential and deep awareness. Please grant here and now the utmost in fulfilling the aims of my prayers by the force of your matchless dedicated heart to uphold the teachings. May you live a long life to further the essence of the deep and extensive guidelines that the able ones taught, as a Lord wielding power of the ocean of great speech, as a lamb for the teachings of the excellent-minded, for the sake of leading to a state of peerless, enduring bliss, all wandering beings oppressed through the bondage to their compulsions and disturbing minds. May you live a long life, fulfilling all infinite hopes through the extensive deeds of your stainless three enigmatic gates. May your dedicated heart once more reach out to strive in serving this triumphant one's teachings through your three pure rounds. I request you, long to remain as a guiding light for wandering beings, in accord with your will in a land of disciples in every direction. By the power of the inspiration from the host of lamas, deities, and protectors, by the force of the truth of non-fallacious dependent arising, by the strength of regard for the exceptional resolve of myself and others, may all the aims of our prayers be exactly and fully fulfilled. Thank you so much, Rinpoche. Thank you so much for your precious teachings and for Rinpoche giving us so many tips for tomorrow. Oh, we have an echo.
Thank you.
We have an echo.
Yeah. So I will see you tomorrow then. So try your best. So tomorrow is a great day. So preparation is needed. So this is kind of a preparation. So please, once we say bye-bye, then don't go to the bed early. Just try to meditate a little bit on that. So be so refreshed tomorrow when you see His Holiness. Okay? Thank you. See you tomorrow then.
Thank you, Rinpoche. See you tomorrow. Thank you, Rinpoche. Thank you so much, Simon La. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. So tomorrow at 4 o'clock again, Rinpoche will continue and conclude his teachings. And please remember, as Rinpoche just mentioned, His Holiness will come the first time after 2 years to the temple tomorrow, but it will be also webcasted. Yeah, so 8 o'clock Indian time, His Holiness will come to the temple, and I assume the webcast will start at that point. If it doesn't start yet, hold on, I'm sure they're having a plan what to do. And at Tushita, we also have a special program because tomorrow is the big day, Chotrul Düchen, the day of miracles. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, we have the light offerings. So many of you very kindly, made some offerings for lights and with your special dedications. So that will happen at 6 o'clock. Indian time. We are aware that many of us might be still in bed or not yet in bed, and it's the day before, so we will record it and you can watch it at any time to your convenience. And then 4 o'clock, Tsenshab Rinpoche continuing, and at 6:30 we will have a medicine Buddha puja at Tushita. So all the same links like you have today. Thank you so much, everybody, and I wish you a good evening in India, good mornings in Americas, a good afternoon wherever you are. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow, hopefully.
Hi. Ciao.
Bye-bye, everybody. Ciao. Bye-bye to Italy, to Brazil, to England. The place of joy.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bye-bye.